Well, after months of protests and unrest leading to the removal of the president, Ukraine is now left without a government. Members of parliament have been frantically trying to form a new interim leadership. But there have been some setbacks. Parliament says the new government won't be formed until Thursday. That's a 2-day delay from what was originally planned. And among the challenges facing the new leadership will be Ukraine's relationship with Russia and the European Union. Now, EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton is in the capital Kiev to discuss that, and Ashton says the EU will support Ukraine and that Russia should help the new leadership to move forward. But on the other hand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow will not interfere in Ukrainian affairs and expects the West to do the same. And acting President Alexander Tuchinov says there are growing signs of separatism in his country. For the latest now, let's go to Andrew Simmons, who joins us live from the capital, Kiev. Now, Andrew, on a separate development that's just occurred, Parliament has also voted to adopt the Rome Statute protocol. Now, this, of course, means that Yanukovych could possibly face the International Criminal Court. What more do you know of this?
Well, it isn't exactly quite like that. The Rome Statute is involved, but what has happened is this, that the Parliament has actually voted in favour of referring the former president to The Hague, along with others, in a specially agreed way, in that they are allowed jurisdiction temporarily in this country for the period of time the offences were committed. Now, this is possible under the Rome Treaty, and I've already got confirmation from a source at The Hague that it can take place. It took place, in fact, in the case of the Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, in 2011, when he was extradited to The Hague. So it could happen. Separate to that, a court is still in session over an arrest warrant that will be issued, we understand, soon against the president and others possibly later. So momentum is growing and growing to try to bring him to justice, while a raft of other measures are being taken by this Parliament. But as you say, it has failed to meet the deadline of forming a new unity government and appointing a new Prime Minister, a caretaker Prime Minister. That has been adjourned for 2 days, and that has also affected the diplomacy in which Catherine Ashton was involved in from the EU, talking about the crisis financially in this country with a possible bailout involving the IMF and the US. Those talks have been put off because there isn't a government in place, and Russia is continually attacking this government, saying it really doesn't have any jurisdiction. It's questionable as to all of the measures it's taking, as to whether it's legal or not, and is also criticizing heavily the European Union for engaging in talks with this government and recognizing it when there was an agreement brokered by the EU to actually have a reformed constitution and elections by the end of the year. So there is a lot of trouble going on right now. By no means is it a clear path right here. And added to all of that, investigations, very intense investigations going on now about the actions of politicians and police and military. In particular, the unit called Alpha. And new pictures have emerged about how this unit went about shooting people in the square behind me.
Now, Andrew, earlier on you outlined the many problems that's facing Ukraine at this very critical moment. And a lot of it has to do, as you say, because of a lack of a government, a working government. Just tell us what's actually happening with the presidency now.
Well, as you rightly point out, that there is tension over this, but I hasten to add, just to add to this point about the formation of the government, what the people here are saying, what the politicians are saying, is that they want to get everything in line, not just the appointment of a caretaker Prime Minister, but also the appointment of a totally new cabinet, and the president, the interim president, will have to appoint a foreign minister and a defence minister. The MPs will then have to confirm that with a vote, and the entire cabinet will have to be introduced and voted on in Parliament. The presidential elections are entirely separate, of course, and they are set to take place, if everything works out, on May the 25th. Now, nominations have opened for them, and we understand already there are two in place. The first one, Vitaly Klitschko. He is a very popular opposition leader who's been in the square a lot, former world champion boxer. He has made it quite clear from the outset he wants to contest the election. Furthermore, we've also heard that Mikhailo Dobkin, he's the governor of Kharkiv in the east, very much against the opposition here. He has announced his candidature, but we haven't heard from Tymoshenko yet whether she, having been released from jail, is, as expected by many, going to throw her hat into the ring. So much uncertainty here, and a real sense that there is a movement forward, but many, many questions about how this will progress and if the former president will be found, because no one is sure precisely where he is, although there are unconfirmed sightings in Crimea.
Andrew, great talking to you. Thank you for that. That's Andrew Simmons there reporting for us from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev.